going to have to negotiate these steps quite carefully. And what I think people love about this garden, and I love it too, is that over the last year or so, we've all had time to really appreciate how important the natural elements of our garden is. And to see a garden that's organic, that is so carefully planted with native plants, that really conjures up the essence of all that is good about the countryside and gardens and sustainable, that we can all share. And I think that's tapped in and therefore has rightfully been honoured with this award. Now, Tom, you must still be slightly reeling.
I am, yeah, really amazing result, but yeah, quite
It's been a good week. Gold medal.
Gold medal.
People's Award.
People's Choice, yeah.
People's Choice. What do you think that people found in your garden?
I think it's partly the message, the organic message, the first organic show garden at Chelsea, the support of the Soil Association, the planting for biodiversity, all the kind of stories and ideas woven through it. I think there's a real, I mean, I'm seeing it in my private work, there's a real shift towards more sustainable practice, sustainable gardening, being kinder to the environment, not killing off all the insects, you know, reducing the use of chemicals in gardening. So I think it's partly that. I think maybe also partly embracing of autumn, you know, the fact that this is the one and only September show, and this garden really celebrates that. You know, you've got things going over, you've got the autumn colours, you've got the kind of birch trees dropping their leaves.
I mean, what you're saying is what I suspect, that it's a sort of exemplar, a perfect example of what's going on in their lives.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, exactly,
You know,
I suppose.
It's picked up in people's back gardens and said, okay, so here's some magic dust and this is what it could be like.
Well, I hope so. I mean, yeah, you know, that's, if people are inspired, you know, this is my favourite time of year, I think, in the garden. And for, you know, for farmers, for harvest, for that kind of, that bounty, that time where summer's over and everything's a bit more relaxed, a bit more kind of chilled out, and it's that time of year where the seasons are changing, there's a little chill in the air, you get that really amazing low night, and I think this garden shows that off really well.
Congratulations, because it's one thing to win prizes, but actually to be loved as well, as people obviously do in this garden, that's something special.
Yeah, so, well, it's a testament to organic, and I think it's a great message.
Okay. Well, now it's time to announce the result of another People's Vote. Earlier on, Joe joined the RHS Director of Gardens and Shows, Helena Pettit, for another magical moment.
This is exciting, this is the moment. Come on, Helena, let's go and surprise him. Come on then, come on.
Alan! Congratulations, you are the RHS People's Choice winner for Chelsea Flower Show 2021 for the Small Gardens.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Take that.
Thank you, Helena. Thank you. Congratulations. Really, you're happy, aren't you? Yeah, I'm always happy. Oh. How does it feel? Amazing. And actually, yeah, who would have believed it? And yeah, I don't know what to say actually, I'm speechless. Did you have any idea? No, I just loved how the public have adored the garden, and it's been really well received. Yeah, this is like the icing on the cake. It's a big one, isn't it? It is, it's amazing, and just thank you to the general public for voting. It's amazing.
I really did enjoy that moment. But of course, it's not all about winning awards. The gardens here have got everybody talking. And one of those is the Guide Dog's 90th anniversary garden. But before we meet the designers, here's the story behind it.
Hello, Janet.
Hello.
Lovely to meet you.
Oh, lovely.
And who's this?
This is Nugget.
Oh, you Nugget? Wow.
I call him Mr. Wonderful.
He's stunning. He's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, Janet, when did you first realise that you were losing your sight?
I think I probably knew from the age of 12 that I wasn't seeing the same as other children because I was known as a clumsy child. I was around 27 and they told me you've got no peripheral vision, you've got retinitis pigmentosa, and you'll have useful but very limited vision for 10 to 15 years.
So what's your sight like now, Janet?
Now, all I can see is light and dark, but of course, just that small diameter of 2 degrees.
When did you first get involved with, with having a guide dog?
1984, I got my first guide dog.
Having guide dogs, how's that changed your life?
Oh, it was wonderful. I felt so liberated. I dread to live without a guide dog now. They give you an awful lot of confidence. It's just made such a big difference to my life, and such a wonderful companion as well, and keeping me really safe. This dog is fantastic.
So, Janet, the garden is wonderful. When did you first get interested in gardening?
Well, when I first came here, really, the garden was such a mess, so I just wanted to make it look nice and full of colour.
Having sight loss, how has it affected how you do garden? How you sort of practically garden?
Oh, well, I actually sit down on the ground and I run my hands over the ground and I feel the stringy weeds.
You've got a Deutzia.
A Deutzia, yes, that's new this year.
Yeah.
Oh, you're good.
Do you find since you've lost your sight that you're more aware of those other aspects of
Oh,
the plants now?
yes. When I had partial sight, all I wanted was bright colours all over the place.
Yeah.
But now, I love the fragrances and I love the feel of things. It's so different. Everything's so different. The apples taste nice and the blueberries.
Thank you, Janet. It's been lovely meeting you today.
Thank you.
And it's certainly given us a lot to think about, hasn't it, with some of the planting that we're going to use of the garden at Chelsea, bearing in mind all those sensual elements. Yeah. This is our design for Chelsea this year. The garden shows a journey from isolation to independence. You know, there is a stone hollow, and there is a path that leads out of that place. And on the top of the path is a sculpture. And this sculpture, it could be anybody, it could be Janet, it could be somebody that is now liberated from that place of darkness and despair to a place of acceptance and awakening and joy, if you like. When we spoke to Janet, she said how important it was that there were bold blocks of colour. So we're going to use, some of these things like the Rebecchias, contrasting with whites as well, so you can see the contrast that she could appreciate. Janet had loads of herbs in the garden, and sort of thyme, basil, sorts of things, and chamomile and mint, and that was quite important to her because it had that aromatic fragrance that alerted the senses. Having that at the edge of the garden, near the path, sort of spilling over, it gives that kind of nice sort of fragrance. This will be the first time Janet's been to Chelsea, and we just kind of hope that what we've created is what Janet's expecting. And that's sort of quite a pressure, isn't it, really? Because we just normally design gardens, and perhaps a bit selfishly in the past, for people that we assume just have normal sight. But of course, many people don't. So this has been a sort of a different kind of challenge. I hope she likes it. Fingers crossed.
Adam, Jonathan, fantastic garden. It must have been incredibly thrilling to see Janet's reaction to the garden as well, and such a positive reaction.
Absolutely, because she's such an inspirational woman, and to be completely blind and to know so much about gardening and plants in her own garden, but to come here and to experience what we've done, and she totally got it, and kind of realised that we had taken a lot of information from her, and it seemed to work. She got all the sensory elements, and we were really blown away with the whole reaction from everybody.
It works on so many levels, doesn't it? This garden. I mean, and that's the idea of it. Really.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We kind of designed it to work for people that are fully sighted, people that are partially sighted, people with sight loss. So, for instance, here in the middle here, these bright blocks of colour for people with partial vision, because we just learned as we designed the garden. It was a learning process for us, and we learned that bright blocks of contrasting colour, people with partial vision can still pick up on those colours.
Yeah.
So that's why we designed this really bright area. But then all the sensory elements as well, things you can feel, things you can taste, things you can touch. things you can smell. So yeah, all those different elements to make it accessible to anybody.
What's the reaction of the public been?
We've been blown away. I think this is our most favourite garden we've ever done, and it's from the public reaction because we show an area of isolation to independence, and your guide dog has taken you to an area where you can experience the world around you. And a lot of people have said, I was in that place, and my guide dog has done this for me, and it's been absolutely amazing. And I think emotionally, it's been.
Well, we've had to swallow that hard a few times because you're talking to people and it's
what it's
so
all about.
That's what it's all about, isn't it? I mean, you've got plants here that are sort of 1930s, pre-1930s as well, that are still absolute classics, aren't they?
Absolutely they are. And when we designed the garden, we wanted the garden to be of the 1930s and use a lot of wildflowers. But in September, a lot of wildflowers are going over, so we can't get the colour. So as you say, a lot of the plants, behind us are of that time. The anemone on Orange Bear is the 1950s. The Aster Tricatio Monk, 1919. The Rebecca Goldstone.
Plants that we still use. Guys,
Absolutely.
the silver medal, everyone's loving it. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
It's fantastic to see heritage varieties being celebrated on a garden here. One plant that's been since a little bit passé in recent years is the Alstroemeria. But